going to give a long introduction to Dr. Arnwine. She has always been famous in our site. She was coming to us before we started doing the John Lewis events. So, um, I am, without further ado, Dr. Barbara Arnwine, Executive Director of Transformative Justice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. I just want to say a couple of words of thanks. I want to thank Chicago. Thank you for everybody who has been out there in those streets. Because one of the most important issues when we talk about women's rights and to vote, and we talk about this whole attack on our democracy, we have to talk about the Trump takeovers because they are not about crime, as we all know. They're not about safety. They're absolutely about suppressing the vote. It is critical for everyone to know that this is the fight of our generation, it's the fight of our time. People will be talking about us forever, about what we did in these moments. I've been reading a book. I don't know how many people have read it, but I've been reading Jason Stanley's Erasing History, which is an outstanding book. And I've been, reading this very thoroughly. Wish I had read it a year ago, right? When it first came out. Just a brilliant work that really puts us into, position to understand this era that we're in of attempted fascism and a very, very, of course, racist fascism, which he covers extremely well. Uh, I just wanted to start by talking about a couple of things. A lot of you heard today that the President Trump has announced that he is signing this EO again on voting rights, and be very clear about what that EO is meant to do. It has two focuses again. One is very clearly on the issue of
you never know somebody's.
Okay, very much on the issue of trying to destroy what he calls citizenship. People voting without citizenship. So he's trying to put in a citizenship requirement under the voting rights. The second thing he's trying to do is to impose, not only impose restrictions on mail-in voting. And think about it. Who uses mail-in voting? And it is so ridiculous that he is trying to attack the ability of people's options for voting instead of trying to expand those very abilities that are so desperately needed in our country. So that, is one of the really ugly things, not to mention, of course, his support for the SAVE Act. Now, here's where the issue of women come in. I mean, we all have been shaking our head about Hessef and his former pastor, who continues to advocate for what? What, folks? The repeal of the 19th Amendment. The repeal of the 19th Amendment. That he doesn't believe that women have the right to vote. Well, the SAVE Act is reflective of that philosophy. Because for over 2 years now, we have told the Congress, we have told all the Congress before they had control as the GOP Congress, that the SAVE Act proposal is detrimental to women. Because it says that if you are a married woman, and it says you got to have an exact match for your ID and your birth certificate. I think part of this is their whole, attempt to get rid of transgendered people from voting. And so they're thinking, oh, if they change their, name and it's no longer whatever they were born, that it's going to block them. But it also, as we pointed out to people, that's horrible in and of itself. But we pointed out that it also means that if you're a married woman and you take in your husband's name for whatever his surname for whatever reasons, and even if you divorced him and you kept that name for whatever reasons, because there's many reasons for that women do that, then your name on your ID, real or otherwise, does not match your birth certificate most of the times. And it's really important to understand that under this estimate, 62 million women would be affected by this horrific proposal. We have said over and over and over to the GOP Congress that this is a problem, and they have refused to fix it. That tells you that it's intentional, that they are afraid, concerned that women will vote in a certain way, especially on issues of abortion. So they're purposefully trying to decrease the numbers of women in the electorate. Think about it. Think about it. The other thing that I wanted you to know is that these EOs that the president is, these executive orders that he's signing, there's a lot of confusion, and I need your help. A lot of confusion in the public because people think that if he's doing these things, that he must have the power to do them. And they don't understand that under the Constitution, under the United States Constitution, you can read it from the first word to the last amendment. You will find nowhere in that Constitution where it delegates any authority to the president over elections. He has none, zero. He has no ability to tell, to actually, institute a law or practice. People don't understand that an executive order is only a directive from the president to the federal agencies. It is not a lawmaking mechanism. And so people are confused. And folks have been telling me, oh, well, he just passed this law. And I'm like, no, he can't pass a law. He can sign a law that has made its way through Congress and has been approved by the House and the Senate. He can sign such a law, but he cannot unilaterally write using an executive order. He can't unilaterally write a law. There are only 210 entities that are empowered to regulate elections in the United States under the Constitution. One of those entities is called the states. All the states, all 50 states have the ability to regulate the time, manner, and place of elections. The only other entity with any such power is the federal Congress, but it's limited only to federal elections, time, place, manner. They rarely have used that power. The National Voting Rights Act is, one of those, you know, uh, examples. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, the National Voter Registration Act, HAVA. There's a few where they've done that, but we were trying to get them in 2021 to use that power or to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. We're now saying to the whole Congress, we need the John Lewis Voting Rights Act also. So these are congressional authority over federal elections with respect for the state rights, for the state abilities to regulate elections. So folks, when you hear him say this, don't quake in your shoes. He's once again overreaching. Think about it. He's lost in federal courts to date 200 cases. He has lost 75% of every case that has been adjudicated regarding his overreaching, overstepping his powers. That's what he's doing with the takeover. That's what he's doing with the so-called election voting rights EOs. So I just want to remind you that the only thing he can do is tell a federal agency. Now, there's a big debate over what can he say to the independent federal agencies, what he can say to the semi-independent federal agencies that's still raging in the courts, how far he can go with them. But he can tell them directly that as far as a federal agency goes, it can do this or that. But once again, it has to be within the legal bounds. He can't change law or attempt to have the agencies change law just because he tells them to do so. So there's all of this confusion. I keep running into it every day. And I think that one example I keep using for people to explain his limitations is, remember what he called Rassenberger in Georgia. And he told in 2020, what did he tell him? He said, find me some 11,000 votes because he couldn't order 11,000 votes. When he called Greg Abbott recently, and I'm moving into another discussion now on redistricting, he wasn't able to say to Greg Abbott, you are commanded to create 5 districts. He said, will you create 5 districts, new districts for me that will be primarily GOP favored? And they had to go through that rigged up, ugly process. That's why you had the refugees in Chicago trying to avoid this, this gerrymander, this very, very racist, by the way, gerrymander that we're suing over, and that we have to sue because it doesn't make sense based on all of the court's law up to this date. Well, as you know, one of the responses to his gerrymander in Texas, his call for it in the GOP in Texas passage now of this gerrymander is that California is doing their own response with their own redistricting process to offset the damage being done. But one thing I want every one of us to think about is the danger and the damage that's being done to our democracy. When you have a president dictating to his party that they have to be totally partisan. Remember that the theory of a democracy, of American democracy, when you read de Tocqueville and all of the others, that the theory of American democracy is that it's meant to be based on statespersonship. They said statesman back there, but statespersonship, meaning that you serve the people writ large, not just the people who voted for you. And there's the danger in what's happening in this democracy. That we're seeing it, and it's being done on racial lines. And it's vicious, it's cruel, and it is contrary to any notion of government by the people, for the people. The part of what's going on in the redistricting front is, I don't know if you are aware that there are 2 major Supreme Court cases that are coming up rapidly in the court for hearing. One will be heard on October the 15th. It is the case of Louisiana versus Calais, Callais. And that is a case about redistricting. Allegedly, when the case was taken by the court, it was taken to determine whether or not the state of Louisiana could be compelled to create 2 majority minority districts because of the population of the state and the fact that racial politics had kept making it so that only one district existed and only one African American representative was there when blacks composed over 30+% of the state's population. So it didn't make sense that there was so little African American representation other than racially polarized voting and the other realities of those kinds of partisan redistricting. So Louisiana, after a whole lot of lawsuits, decided to adopt one more, two minority majority districts. And a bunch of, quote, non-whites, that's how they describe themselves. I mean, well, non-blacks, I'm sorry. That's how they describe themselves in the lawsuit. Non-blacks brought a lawsuit saying undo both districts because there shouldn't be any minority majority districts based on race. Even though race had been used to deny blacks all this power, all these decades, it was just, the courts, of course, denied them in their lawsuit. So they now are before the Supreme Court. And in the initial case, the question before the court was, could you have these two majority minority districts? Well, that case was argued in March of this year. And oddly, when we got to the end of the year, the court decided not to issue an opinion on that case. Instead, it scheduled re-argument. All of us knew that was bad news. And sure enough, they changed the question in the case. And the case is no longer about should there be two minority districts. The case now says the issue is whether or not drawing any racially minority majority district violates the Constitution of the United States. Well, you would think that was problematic enough. But listen to me about what happened on August the 27th. The briefs were due because they expedited this whole case. And under this new question, they expedited, meaning that they accelerated. They moved the calendar rapidly to hear this so that they can hear this case. And on August the 27th, Louisiana filed its brief, as did LDF on behalf of the Black plaintiffs in the case. And Louisiana, which had always defended its map in the lower courts and in the argument in March, changed their position. Suddenly, all the law, changed in their heads. And they not only argued in that brief that they filed that their own map was unconstitutional and decided not to defend it, but they also joined others in saying that the entirety, listen to me very closely, that the entirety, the totality of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is unconstitutional. We can talk about that some more. But this is one of two cases designed to absolutely destroy the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The second case. But before I leave that, because you always want to know what can I do about this, because I'm not here just to talk. We're going to have on October 15th, the League of Women Voters, yay, and TJC are helping to organize a rally at the Supreme Court. And we're asking for people who can make it to come, but we're also asking for you to tell all your friends who are in DC to please join us at the court, so the court knows how important this case is to this nation. The second case is the case of Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians et al. Versus Howe out of North Dakota. And this is a really ugly case, folks. I mean, if you didn't think the first one was ugly, this one's worse, because this one basically says that no private individual can bring a private right of action under the Voting Rights Act, under Section 2 or any other sections now they're arguing of the Voting Rights Act. Meaning that if, as has happened in the Eighth Circuit, this is a case coming out of the Eighth Circuit, coming out of North Dakota, affecting Native Americans, where they were gerrymandered out of any political power. They won at the district court, lower court level. They won at the twice in arguments and good findings, horrible racial discrimination in the drawing of the lines, everything in this redistricting process. Well, there's been this move started by Justice Gorsuch in some suggested dicta in 2021 that he didn't think that anybody had a private right of action under the Voting Rights Act. So in the Eighth Circuit, the judge who heard a case 2 years ago, November of 2023, found that there was no private right of action under the Voting Rights Act. The question that they left open was there a private right of action if you use Section 1983 to import the Voting Rights Act protections? And the court in this year decided, the Eighth Circuit overturned the lower court judge's opinion, finding all this racial discrimination, by saying he had no business deciding the case because it was brought by private parties, and that the only person in the United States that can bring a case under the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bundy. Yes, the same Pam Bundy that's wiped out, the majority of the Voting Rights Division at the Justice Department. The same Pam Bundy has brought no cases on behalf of anybody who is a racial minority in their favor. I mean, you have to understand that in the Eighth Circuit, there was a case involving a noose that was hung over a polling site's door that said that with people, basically expressing no blacks allowed to vote. And they were sued for allowing this noose to hang during early voting, hang during the voting process, never took it down. This case challenging that noose was dismissed also because of the no private right of action. So I want you to also know that they're trying to now import that doctrine not only into the federal law, but into the state law in Missouri. So this is vicious and real and necessary. So what we're going to do in this case, and I need your help here, is that we're going to file an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, on behalf of foot soldiers. Foot soldiers are all those people you have read about and seen in film or seen in the movie Selma, who marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on March 6, 1965, and March 7th, and were viciously beaten on that bridge by the Alabama state troopers. There were 600 of them. A good number of them are still alive. Elderly, but this is one place where being older counts because they stood on that bridge. They fought for this Voting Rights Act to be passed. They marched from Selma to Montgomery to see this act passed. They all thought that there was a private right of action because they knew that you couldn't trust the Justice Department because of all the problems with the Justice Department not protecting freedom riders and other things. Nobody thought that they were walking and marching just for the Justice Department to bring cases. So I want you to help me. We're trying to locate, identify, and talk with, interview every single living foot soldier who is able to sign on to this brief, because we want the court to know what the people who made the act happen expected. The last thing I'm going to talk about really quickly is voter suppression in general. We have some new resources for you. If you go to, I don't know if they're up yet, but tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org, we have produced a new document that is a summary of the two cases I just mentioned. We've also produced a new version of the 72 plus forms of voter suppression. Brand new, right? Hot off the press. I mean, really brand new. We just released it for the first time on Friday of last week. And you will find so much good educational information in that document. We don't like to, as TJC, just to talk. We like to give resources to the public so that people can use it and can be able to educate others, because our goal is not just to be talking heads, but to be educators. And there's so much else I could talk about. This attack on the Smithsonian, the Blacksonian, the National Museum for African American History and Culture. This whole Trump wants everything to align with his worldview when he barely knows any history, barely knows any current, geopolitical realities. All of these things. But I just want you to understand that in this time, we are counting on each other. We are each other's answer to the crisis that our country is facing. You had a no fear rally? Thank you. Because in this era, it takes the thing that the Pettus Bridge foot soldiers had, that John Lewis had, and that's called courage. It takes compassion. It takes consciousness. It takes determination and perseverance. We cannot allow this era to go down in history as one of where we sat silent. Everything we do has to be about making sure that our dream, our quest, our fight for a just, inclusive, unfettered, multiracial democracy becomes a reality for every soul in this country eligible to vote. Thank you so much for having me. I hope this is helpful. I can answer questions as you see fit. Thank you.
I was gonna say to those of you that don't want to ask a question, if you put it in the chat, I'll be happy to read it for you. And Carol, if you can check and see if there's anybody in the waiting room that I may have missed. I don't see anyone at this time. Dr. Barber, you gave a date for us earlier.
Yes.
When you were speaking. Could you repeat that to go before Supreme Court for those who know people who live in Washington?
And who are coming themselves, because when I was in Florida this weekend, and I had a couple of people say they're coming from Florida to be part of that Supreme Court gathering. It's October the 15th, and that is the re-argument in the Louisiana versus Calais case, the redistricting case. There's also another date that I hope you have on your calendars, right? Everybody have that other date on your calendars, and that date is October the 18th. October the 18th is No King's 2. Yes. And we are organizing and building towards No Kings 2. This, we want to double the impact of the original No Kings, to have. Thank you, Janita, and everyone who's putting in the information into the chat. We want to have everyone to come out to make it clear about our oppositions. Remember, why do we do No Kings 2? Why do we do No Kings? Why do we get into these streets? Because every study that's been done of fascism, and we are in an attempted era of fascist takeover. Have no doubt about it. People don't want to say those words. They want to say, oh no, it's just, we got these bad actors. No, 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 no. We have three branches of government, and all three branches of government are being complicit. They are being compliant, and they are, they're bowing, and giving power to create this supreme, what they call it, this imperial presidency that is described in Project 2025 as their ultimate goal, is that they want to basically rewrite the Constitution. You got it. They want to rewrite the Constitution to make the president have all of these kingly powers that the whole Constitution was designed to prevent. So it is so important for you to absolutely use everything in your power to be there. So, because what we know from studies of all the democracies that went through fascist takeover, attempted takeover fights, all the ones who defeated the attempted takeovers were able to put at least 3.5% of the people into the streets to show opposition. It doesn't take 10%. You heard me. It didn't even take 5%. It took 3.5%. And so it's critical that we tell all our people to raise their voices. Dr. King said what? That the greatest threat wasn't the racist that he faced. It was the silence of good people who were silent. It's terrifying. I've heard people talking about this DC takeover, and I've seen it. People, it scares the hell out of people to see armed troops walking up and down their streets. Do you know that? While they're trying to take their babies to school, trying to walk their children to school, trying to, have a life. In DC, people just aren't coming out of their homes. People have become homebound. That's what's happened. When they talk about, quote, crime being down, so, yeah, because nobody's going anywhere. The restaurants are crying. The businesses are crying because the foot traffic is gone. Nobody wants to be out and to be, to be possibly assaulted for no reason. They got checkpoints that they've thrown up around the city where they're just stopping people for random reasons. But one thing I like about me some DC, and like I love about Chicago, is that folks aren't having it. So when they put up the checkpoints, folks spontaneously out of nowhere appear and go down to the corners and start yelling and chanting, "We don't want you here. Stop this, we don't want you here." And they warn people that the checkpoint is down the street, so all the cars turn around, so the checkpoint's just sitting up there empty. And over again, the checkpoints have been taken. Because of that, they've had to just close them down. The other thing they do in DC now is every day at 8:00 p.m., every single night at 8:00 p.m., they make noise. The church bells ring. People get out there with any kind of clapper or noise maker, and they just make noise and holler and scream for a couple, for about 10 minutes to make the point that they're not happy with this occupation. On Saturday, like you had your No Fear rally, they marched, 20,000 people got in the streets and marched in DC. Folks are still scared. There's a lot of people who, quote, wanted to march, but were too afraid to do so because they thought they were going to be attacked. This is not a free society. This is an occupation, and we don't want to see it anywhere. But you and I know that the only reason why they're doing this has nothing to do with safety, but it's about destroying political power. They want to destroy Black political power. They want to destroy women's political power. And they want to destroy Democratic, blue. And I'm just telling the truth. I'm not, being partisan here. It's what their goal is. And it is to destroy blue power because they're worried. Clearly, every poll they have taken, and when I say they, I'm talking about the GOP oriented, posters have taken, is telling them that they're going to lose 2026 if it's a fair election. So they're doing everything they can to rig it ahead of time, redistricting and control.
Dr. Barbara, Deb Rosenberg has her hand raised.
Yes, Deb.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Barbara. So actually, perfect segue, because here's what I want to ask you, which is, I think what is terrifying me.
Yes.
Can you do some prognostication? I mean, we're doing all we can do, and we need to be out there in the streets as often as possible. Your sense of will we have a reasonably fair and free election in 2026?
We're going to have to fight like hell to have one. That's the reality, folks. Left to their devices, this spineless, Congress isn't going to fight the way they ought to, and this dictatorial president is going to continue to push. But here's what we got to do. Remember, there were, according to every stat, we know that the majority of Americans did not vote in 2024. We know that even with that, it was a very close election. There were, and I'm just stating facts, there were 19 million people who were registered Democrats who did not vote in 2024. 19 million. 19 million. And we know that each year during that by the time we get that each year, millions of new voters join the polling ranks, join the voting ranks. Sadly, we know that because of the voter suppression, voter registration hasn't been robust like it should have been. So here's what we got to do. We got to do some intentionality. We got to be intentional about telling people who are disgusted, because a lot of Americans are just disgusted. You got to tell them that they have the power to make the difference, that they don't have to sit around being angry, fearful, depressed, that they actually have some power. And what you want them all to do is to not just be thinking about how they're going to vote, because we want them to vote. We don't need, all this. We don't need to hate on folks for what they did and didn't do, but we just got to tell them that this is your redemption time, right? This is your time to do the right thing. And so what we want them to do, Deb, is we need people to resolve that they are going to vote, and to resolve that they're going to encourage everybody they know to vote, because that's the only way. They stopped it in other countries. I mean, in other countries, people had to literally walk through, armed guards to go vote, but they did, and they voted them out in these, attempted fascist takeovers. It's going to take, that kind of courage. And I would also argue that there's a whole lot of young people who need our investment, so that they know also that their sense of injustice, their sense of wanting a change is correct, that they have the right to have that fire in their bellies about fighting this wrong. Tomorrow in DC, there's going to be college and high school walkouts all over the city. And they actually have it timed that in different parts of the city, the walkouts are happening all tomorrow, beginning I think as early as 10 o'clock, and it's going to it's going to rotate all day long from one end of the city to the other. And so each hour, a new part of the city walks out, and they're basically calling it Blackout Wednesday, if I'm correct. And so that's really important because that's young people taking the lead, saying we don't like this, we're not going to have this. The more we teach, the better people are, because what they're trying to do by shutting down the Smithsonian, by trying to make the Smithsonian lie about slavery, lie about democracy, lie about women's rights, all of this stuff, they're doing this purposefully so our young people will think that what's happening is normal. We got to keep on pressing that this is wrong, it's abnormal, and it's not what democracy looks like.
Carol Levine has a question.
It's more of a sharing of information.
Yes.
I think it's important for everyone to know that when the two cases that you discussed are heard by the Supreme Court, we all can listen in to those cases. They are simulcast at supremecourt.gov. That's all you have to do is go there and click on the right button, and it's pretty clear what it is. And I will tell you, as someone who listens regularly, because I chair Courts Matter Illinois, listens regularly, takes a while for it to come up, but you can listen to the actual hearing and hear what the arguments are and what they are saying. And it is, I think, really enlightening to hear it firsthand and to hear how the justices, the questions they're asking. Sometimes by the end of the hearing of a court case, you pretty much know what the court decision is going to be. But on the other hand, sometimes you're sort of saying, well, maybe we may pull a win out of this one.
Right.
So if you can't be in DC standing in front of the court, you can be online hearing what is going on inside the court. So just go to supremecourt.gov at 9 o'clock, because the court starts at 10 o'clock Eastern and 9 o'clock Central. On the dates, I'm looking at what I wrote down, but I don't have my glasses on right now, October 15th, and you can hear the case firsthand. So that's important to know.
Thank you.
Ori has a question.
Yes, I have a question.
Susan Oppenheimer after Ori.
I have a question and a comment. I'm a used to be retired civil rights attorney, so I truly, truly appreciate all that you are doing. But of the 19 million registered Democratic voters that did not register Democrats, has there been any analysis of race or class of those registered voters? Because I do know Chicago-wide and statewide, and quite frankly, my roots in Alabama, my lower income, less educated family members don't believe their votes matter anymore. They, why should I vote if it don't matter? And particularly those where they are threatened, and there are some people in Wisconsin that were threatened about voting outside of Milwaukee. They burned some of the voting boxes, drop-in boxes. What structurally is being done to address this? And this is new. This is exactly what they did before the voting. Well, this before the Voting Rights Act was passed. That's why the Voting Rights Act was passed. So how do we engage those that feel their vote won't make a difference, or it doesn't matter if I vote?
First of all, it's so important, everyone, to know that I warned people as early as 2022 that there was a massive paid campaign of voter discouragement, where people were being told precisely what you said. Don't waste your time voting because it's not going to matter.
Yes.
No matter what you do, it's not going to be mattered. In fact, people were told it's uncool to vote. They were told that that they would be just wasting their time because nothing was going to change. Blah blah blah. No good. This party, that party, just it's all a waste. And so there was a conscious, very deliberate voter disinformation and discouragement campaign. What does that mean? That means we got to do the exact opposite. We got to show people why it matters. That means the candidates got to be good. They got to be better. Some of these candidates, come on now, they got to be a lot better than they are. We also need to be able to counter that disinformation. And there's so many great examples of politicians, elected officials who have made a difference in people's lives. And those stories have to be told. I thought your mayor's article, his op-ed, I should say, in the New York Times today was excellent because that's what he did. He basically talked about what the people have acquired from his mayoral reign. And that's so important because people don't know what's capable. People don't hear the good. And so we got to have the powerful why it's so important for you to vote. But we also got to have better candidates. Some of these candidates just aren't right.
Susan
Wait a minute.
Oppenheimer. I've
Okay,
unmuted
I
you.
got it. I have a question for Barbara and for Carol.
Yes.
When you talk about listening to the court cases,
Yes.
is it useful to mobilize people to listen so the court sees that there's a lot of interest in these
Yes.
cases?
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, you can, send notes to them saying that you're going to be watching. And that you're, it's not meant to be intimidating, just saying that, these cases concern you greatly. Because in both of those cases, they are arguing. And I don't know if I emphasize this enough about the second case. Not only are they saying that we can't walk into the courthouse and that the doors are closed, they're also saying that the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional in both cases. So this is a straight up racket to destroy the Voting Rights Act. They know what they're doing. And it's critical for us to, make our voices heard and to listen. I mean, because people will learn a lot by listening to those arguments.
And they know, they know people are listening.
Yes.
I mean, the gallery that at the Supreme Court is small. Not very many people get to sit in the Supreme Court. I've never been able to get into the Supreme Court, and I'm not going to be in Washington. So,
Right.
but I have listened to enough Supreme Court cases that I can tell who's speaking by their voices at this point, except for Kagan
Barrett?
and no, not Barrett. The two Democratic women.
Oh, Sotomayor and Jackson.
Yeah, and Sotomayor because of their New York accents.
Oh, okay. Kagan and Sotomayor.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I get them confused sometimes when they speak. But otherwise, I can tell who's speaking at this point because I've listened to so many cases. And, we try and list the cases we think are of interest, the most interest to the public on the Courts Matter Illinois website and get notices out and things like that that we call listen in on history. So I'll be doing a write-up on each of these cases
Oh, good.
that will
Good.
go out so that people will have a summary of why we think this is important and what to do in terms of listening. So it and tell other people, because it's open and people should know that you have a right to hear. This is your Supreme Court. And
They need
and
to be
quite
reminded.
yeah, and quite frankly, as we look at how court cases have come down on what the Trump administration has been doing, the lower courts, particularly the lower federal courts, have been standing up for the
Give them credit.
constitutional rights
Give them
across
credit.
the board. It has been the Supreme Court that
Right.
has not.
That's right.
So we need, and people need to say that. They need to acknowledge that the judges who have lifetime appointments to the federal courts have really done yeoman's work so far, for the most part. I won't say
Yes.
all of them, but for the most part. But the Supreme Court has given me great pause.
Now it's too much quid pro quo. But what's fascinating though is let's talk about Turtle Mountain. Something happened in July of this year that was startling, and that was when this ugly decision came out from the Eighth Circuit, and they were asked to rehear it en banc, and they refused. They did that before; they refused again. And so the petitioners, the representatives of the Native Americans, actually filed what's called an emergency application for a stay, pending the filing of a writ of certiorari, which is a writ, for the court to review the case. And guess who granted the stay? Saying, Eighth Circuit, you can't impose this. Kavanaugh. Ultimately, the question was, could you get an extended stay beyond his, the short window that one justice can grant for a stay? On the extended stay, only 3 justices said no, that they would not have allowed it. You guys want to guess who they were? Everybody want to guess? Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. But the fact that 6 of them, including Barrett, and Kavanaugh and Roberts, said that they wanted to, stop this decision. And because of what they stopped, that meant all those Native Americans who were elected into office were able to be sworn in and to take on their duties. So it was a very affirmative case. But the other thing I want everybody to know is that these anti-democracy forces, they're not easily deterred, because the next week after the stay, the Eighth Circuit entered another decision saying that Section 208 of the Voting Rights Act, which allows for voter assistance to those who are disabled, to those who cannot read well, to those who need any kind of assistance because they don't understand the ballot, whatever, that they're able to have an assistant of their choice. They found in what's called Arkansas United that there is no private right of action under Section 208. So they doubled down on the no private right of action. So these folks, they do not believe, and I kept saying this when I did the map of shame in 2011, and nobody wanted to believe me. I said, you don't understand. There are people out there who don't believe in democracy. They just don't believe in it. They believe in plutocracy, oligarchy. They believe in a theocracy, but they do not believe in democracy.
Dr. Arnwine, we cannot thank you enough for all of the information you have brought to us today. For those persons who were late getting in, Carol told us to go to supremecourt.gov. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you want to hear the case on October 15th, if you want to go to DC, they're going to be standing outside, and Dr. Arnwine has told us if we get invaded by the National Guard, one of the actions we can take is to stand on our balconies, hang out our windows, stand on our front porches, and get some pots and pans and just beat the hell out of them, pardon my expression, if every night at a time certain. So, Dr. Arnwine, thank you so much. We hope to have you back again. If something earth-shattering happens, you know we're going to call you and ask you to come back.
Well,
so, thank you.
Well, thank you, Chicago. Thank you. Thanks for your spirit. Thanks for your smarts. Thanks for your organizing. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for having me. And I feel, hey, Chicago is Chicago. I mean, I feel just as drawn to your city as anybody could be. And, and I look forward to being there, and we'll be there with you for some of these demonstrations. There's no way I can leave you by yourself. Got to go down to New Orleans, got to, do some other, joining some other places, because this is all of our fight. Just thank you. Thank you. And if you know foot soldiers, please send me their names and contact information, because
and that's
want
the
them to
TJ Coalition.
.org. And they can send it to info. We got our info up and running. info@tjcoalition.org.
And don't forget October 18th.
Yes.
No Kings #2.
Yes. Let's do this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam President, did you want to say anything? Miss Jackie? She's at the game, so she can't.
I understand.
You want to say anything? She's waving to us.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Arnwine. Have a blessed evening.
I love you, Betty Magnus. Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Be well, everyone.
Look forward to seeing you again in our next general meeting.
Blessings, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.